Hey everybody, today is day 17 and the topic is the one thing question. Hi everybody, I'm Cathy Naiser with the Naiser Real Estate Group here at Keller Williams Realty CityView in San Antonio, Texas. Thanks for joining us on this KW Model 66-Day Challenge Thoughts and Questions. Today's day 17 and our topic is the one thing focusing question. So in his book, The One Thing, Gary does a lot of research on a lot of topics, and I really suggest that you read this, that you give it to your friends and family, no matter what profession they're in, because it's the surprisingly simple truth behind extraordinary results. Doesn't say in real estate, just extraordinary results. So I'm going to explore this question, and then we're going to look at how Gary says to apply it. Now, a couple of comments that came out after Gary wrote the book. One is, everybody said, well, you're crazy. You can't just do one thing. And he said, I never said only one thing, but there is one thing in the different areas of your life that will help you. So the question is, and I'm going to break it down. So what is the one thing? Okay. What is the one thing in these different areas? And we'll go through them in a minute. The second part of the question, I can do. Not that I wish I could do or somebody else can do, or what is the one thing I can do? I can do it. I can do it. I'm capable of it, and I can. It's in the realm of possibility for me. What's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, so that when I actually do this one thing, everything else becomes easier or unnecessary? That's an important question. So we could have a whole list of 25 things to do, and we talked about yesterday, we could break that down and take it to, what do we call it, Pareto to the extreme. So we could take a list of 25 and say, okay, what are the 5 most important things? And then you break it down, okay, out of all of those 5, what's the one thing that would make everything else easier? Not the one thing I like, not the one thing my head says it's important, but what's the one thing that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? So that's the question. Now, Gary said that we have in his mind, and he's come up with this in his Quantum Leap course, as well as this book and the many times that he's taught, that we have at least 7 areas of our life. You get too many areas and you can't deal with that. So maybe there might be one more area, but these topics pretty well cover the different areas of our life. So our spiritual life is one area. Our physical life is one area. Our personal life, that's just us and our own sanity and our own, that's us, right? That's not our family. Our key relationships, so that can be family, that can be husband, wife, your kids, your parents, your siblings, your, even the key relationships for your business. For my job, what's the one thing I can do for my job? So as a real estate agent, the one thing, my job, my biggest one thing is always lead generation. It's always, because if I don't do lead generation, then I don't have a job, right? So what's the one thing for my job? Now, for my business is different. For my business, what's the one thing? It may be train my team, or it may be do my P&L, and then there's my finances. That's my personal finances. So let's go through these. So for your spiritual life, if you have whatever your spirituality is, and it could be that you just going out in nature keeps you connected to yourself better, whatever that is, or you go to church or whatever. What's the one thing for my spiritual life that such by doing it, everything else can be easier and necessary? So I have been on Acts retreats. I've been on teams for Acts retreats. I love that. I can't do it all the time, so doesn't fit that I can do sentence, and I certainly can't do it right now. But my morning quiet time is something I can do no matter what. So what's the one thing I can do for my spiritual life that will actually make everything else easier and necessary? I know that if I don't have my quiet time in the morning, I'm not much good throughout the day. So what's your one thing for your spiritual life? And define that spiritual life for you. What's the one thing I can do for my physical health? Well, I can do lots of things for my physical health. I can watch the sugar that I eat or the carbs that I eat because they turn into sugar and I have a sugar problem. I don't want to be a diabetic, so I really want to keep my sugar low because I tend up. So that's an important thing. Is it the one thing? Truth be told, the one thing for me would probably be exercise, because when I'm exercising, then I start making better food choices. So you have to decide what's the one thing for you with your physical health, your personal life. So, what's the one thing I can do that makes everything else easier or unnecessary? This is for you, for your own personal well-being. I know that after I go fishing, oh my God, I am in such a good mood for several days, right? So maybe the one thing I could do for my personal life is to go fishing at least once a week or get out on the water. One of the reasons I moved to Canyon Lake. I work in San Antonio and surrounding areas, go in every day, don't mind it because I love being at Canyon Lake where it can be near the water. It helps me do this. So for my key relationships, again, you have to look at who are your key relationships. And we're going to talk about that in another model. But really think, your kids. What's the one thing you can do for your kids? Maybe some dedicated time for each kid. Maybe some time for all of them where you actually get to interact with each one of them. Because each one is a key relationship. They're not a key relationship in groups. For your husband or wife, what's the one thing you can do? What's for your business relationships? How often do you talk to them? So you can see it's not just one thing because it's a bunch of different people. So for the different people that are your key relationships that you have identified as your key relationships, what is the one thing for each one of them that you can do, such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? For my job, whatever you deem your job is, whether you're administrative support, whether you're team leader, whether you're an OP, whether you're an agent, whether you're a buyer's agent, really doesn't matter. For your job, what's the one thing? And, for my job as a real estate agent, the one thing is always lead generation. And I get to that, number one, I can do it. I can always lead generate. And as long as my phone's working and, I can talk, but there's different ways I can lead generate. So what's the one thing I could do such that by doing it, everything else will become easier and necessary? I could say, what's the one thing I could do that such by doing it, I actually have a job, right? So if I don't lead generate, I don't have a job. So my business, so your business is whatever realm, and even if you're an agent on a team, or you're a team assistant team leader, or a team leader, or you're a tech person on a team for a market center, that's your business, that thing, that's your own livelihood. It's how you handle your business, okay? So your business decisions are going to be different than your job decisions. So for my business, the one thing, if I train my team really well, that's the one thing right now. There are other things. I need to watch my P&L. I need to watch my expenses. Right now, what's the one thing I can do? I can get on the top of that CARES Act and apply for that loan for my business. And then what's the thing I can do for my finances? And that could be multiple things. Probably one of the first starting one for many people is to have a budget. And to figure out how you're going to deal with that budget. For instance, I don't like swiping cards. I follow Dave Ramsey. And I know that if I'm swiping a card, I'm spending too much money. So every month we do a budget. At the beginning of the month, we pay all our bills at once. Then we figure out how much we need in our different categories to live on and within our budget of what we have, right? And then we dole out that cash and put it in envelopes. That's the norm. Except that right now we're kind of weirded out about using cash. So we're having to come out with a different way to deal with our swiping so that we can swipe and use money, swipe our card, but keep track of it, knowing that we only have so much. So right now, the one thing looks a little different than it did a month ago. So these questions change. It's not one thing forever. It's something that periodically, yearly, quarterly, monthly, you could sit down and look at. How am I doing in all these different areas, right? I'm not happy with my physical health right now, not because I'm not making smart choices, although sometimes I don't, but because I'm confined at home, my activity is low. And so I'm needing to make some new choices about that. So anyway, what's the one thing I can do such that by doing it, such by actually doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary? Okay, this is day 17. See you tomorrow. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.